Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well from whichever part of the world you are watching or listening. We are officially in summer here in Spain and in many parts of the world. And now is when things are getting incredibly warm. You can see that shine on my face, that glow. I'd love to say it's a lovely glow. It's just incredibly hot. And I don't really like air conditioning. So it doesn't make my life easier. That said, in Madrid, we only have 2 months of the year when it gets, slightly you bake slightly, but I can't complain. I live in a very beautiful city and I have lived in places where it is 55 degrees already. So I can't complain. Now, talking about summer, as it is summer, um, this is that special time of the year when I launch my Wellness and Hospitality Spotlight. So that's basically my virtual wellness summit. I kicked off with these summits last year. So last year was my first one, and I called it the Wellness and Hospitality Spotlight from insignificant to prominent. How last year we saw wellness going from being this amenity department within the hospitality industry to now being a prominent part and genuinely integrated into the fabric of hospitality when it comes to our guests' well-being and also our employees' well-being. And this year, I'm shedding the spotlight on how wellness has gone from being this trendy element, this buzzword that has been tagged or slapped onto any and every industry, to being something that is a timeless element in the sense that is an integral part of the hotel's entire asset ecosystem. And with me, I have had great pleasure. I've had the luck to be working alongside my lovely colleague, Hilary Rand, who has helped me handpick these amazing professionals out there. You're all out there doing such amazing work. And I remember when we were sitting together and we were going through, what are we going to put the spotlight on? What could be very useful for the industry right now? And what we saw is that what is evident is that wellness is here and it is here to stay. Of that, there is no doubt. And secondly, we're living disruptive times, and we all know that. And things are rapidly evolving. And what used to work a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago, is no longer works today and is not relevant. And also, on that same note, what we do today might not be relevant tomorrow or in a few years' time. And what has, come out of all this is that there is no playbook to follow. What works in one location with one property could be very, very different to what works in another location, another property, pretty much could be in the same city also or in the same country. So what Hilary and I have done is last year we handpicked key professionals, only the ones we could pick because there's so many out there, but we handpicked 19 professionals to share their insights, all in very diverse and different parts of the hospitality industry. And this year we're taking that a step further. But what I wanted to do today is to share the wrap up of one of the days that Hilary did on last year's event. And what I found fascinating, what we both found fascinating when we were going back and revisiting all the content and all the insights from last year to see what we're going to talk about this year, we saw that a lot of the insights from last year were still incredibly relevant to what is happening today. And one thing is for certain, there are many things for certain. I keep on saying the one thing, but one thing that is clear is that wellness is a complex business, but it doesn't need to be complicated. And there are many ways we can do wellness successfully. And what success looks like for one person might be very, very different to another entrepreneur with their hotel and what wellness means to them. And what we wanted to do is actually just share the realities of different people in different parts of the hospitality industry, how they are embracing wellness, what challenges they're having. It's clear that they're doing wellness very successfully. And I sometimes think that when we just share our success stories, we don't learn much from them. But when we are actually humble and actually open and honest about the challenges involved in making wellness a success, I think that sheds a very different spotlight. And it's almost very inspiring to see, okay, we do have these challenges, and people are, despite these challenges, having success. And we want to know what they're doing to navigate these challenges. And that is why we've handpicked these amazing professionals out there, from the several professionals out there doing amazing work. And we're showcasing and allowing them to share their experiences. So today I wanted to give a glimpse of what we shared last year and how relevant it is that we still see it happening today. So without further ado, I'm going to share a snippet of Hillary's wrap up from day one of our Wellness and Hospitality Spotlight last year. So, if this works, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the end of day one of Wellness and Hospitality Spotlight. What a fantastic day it has been, with so much incredible content. My name is Hilary Rand. You've probably seen me in some of the interviews if you watched all the sessions. It's a real privilege to have been asked by Sonal to be part of the co-hosting and co-organizing of this virtual event. I work primarily in the food and beverage strategy space in hospitality, but as we've heard from so many of our speakers, the products and offers are being blended these days. So wellness and well-being comes into my remit quite a lot as well, through the food and beverage route and the guest experience as a whole. So it's been a real pleasure to lead some of the discussions, and I will be doing more so tomorrow as well on day two. But I would like to run through a wrap up of the incredible content that we've heard on day one today, and it's been fantastic with great speakers, with so many different angles and viewpoints. But at the same time, I think there's been some common themes that have come throughout. So I'll get through each of the sessions and highlight things that I personally found were really interesting, and that should be the sort of the key takeaways from the first part of the content. So we started out listening to fantastic Lauren from Leading Hotels of the World on sort of trend watching in the independent hotel perspective. I think one of the key things there, and why the trends, hearing from Lauren about the trends was so unique, is that their members really are the icons of their destinations. And it was interesting to see that what she said is that they haven't really slowed down in coming out of the rough years, but actually, and there have been no drop-offs in hotels becoming members, but actually, because travelers are seeking a lot more of these authentic experiences, the theme has been sort of raised to a new level, because bespoke experiences are really, really the way to go. And what independent hotels have as kind of as their asset is that there is no blueprint, as what Lauren was saying. They can really prescribe themselves what it is that makes them authentic and stand out, and how they can create these experiences. Some of the examples Lauren gave were, using the surroundings of the property, aka do have the forest bathing sessions. There was a great property in Switzerland. She mentioned that there's a travel fit program with a performance coach, sort of very high energy and high pace environment that modern travelers, business travelers live in, and then how to sort of re-energize and get back fit and fight the jet lag and whatnot. And
also, how to create spaces that are made for a different type of heaven, and also keep kids and teenagers in mind when doing so, because they do travel with their parents quite a lot. And I think one of the very other interesting things Lawrence said was that people want more destinations. That's what's really coming out of their own insights, from the 425 different luxury independent properties that are within their portfolio. They want to connect with different cultures all around the world. They want more unique trips. One of the things Lauren mentioned is that responsible travel is a lot more prevalent than it used to be. And two things that sort of keep owners up at night is the looming staffing issues that we have across the globe in our industry. And the second thing she mentioned was the rate of change in technology, which I found quite interesting, but definitely something that we see hoteliers struggling with, because there are just so many new players out there constantly trying to sell their products. So we already say that their platform helps to pick out those that would really work for their properties. And I think as a closing note, I like the idea that personalized travel is a necessity, and the long-term sustainability strategy is vital, but that has to be transparent, and there has to be clarity around that, not just doing things for things' sake. I think it was a fantastic opening to our lineup of sessions. We then moved on to Sean Murphy, talking about sort of staying relevant in a changing landscape. Because wellness really has become a buzzword, like you mentioned, but we really need to sort of need to change the mindset around that. And he agreed that technology can be sort of really big help for easing pain points, but it should be the driving force. And I think for me, one of the key elements from his session was the fact that there's too much growth out there and not enough people to deliver it. And I think that's a really powerful idea of looking at it that way, as opposed to saying, oh, we don't have enough staff, and what should we do? So the growth is really outpacing what the market can deliver in terms of the people factor. And also the fact that staff these days, and we'll come back to it on some of the other sessions, is it's an employer market, and people value life outside work more than they value work. And these were specifically Sean's word, and I think it's really, really interesting how they need to bring that into your business model and into your thinking. We then moved on to Li Kyung, contrasting wellness versus traditional approaches in hospitality. She talked about sort of much better curated guest experiences that resonate better with the guest, and that energies are very different in a wellness and well-being offer than just a spa offer. And I loved her terminology of heart-touching service. I think that's a really beautiful notion, and that modern travelers are tired, and we need to cater to those needs. And the programs that are being created around well-being need to address those needs. And I think that's really, really, really vital. And that a curated and very personalized and customized approach can really provide a lot for your bottom line, and can give you sort of a competitive edge on a financial point of view. And one of the other things I thought was very interesting, what she mentioned, is there's a big urban center demand, and we'll see much more coming in that space to the market. So I thought that was quite interesting when we see wellness products, well-being treatments not being offered only in resorts or in rural locations, but they're really going to city centers, because again, that's what travelers need. We then moved on to the Consultants Initiative, talking about uncovering missed opportunities and maximizing revenue potential for hoteliers, wonderfully moderated by Sonal, with guests Lynn and Wilfred. And I think one of the things that came out of that discussion, that robust wellness programs need the time and care, and they need to be well planned before even the property has been built, to really curate that that experience have the right spaces and the right offering in place, and that guests don't just want to lie down, but they really want to find problems for their solution. Really find solutions for their problems, whether it's mental or it is physical. And talking about mental, they both mentioned sort of treatments for mental treatments, and they don't need sort of massive areas. So it's really thinking about incredible spatial planning. And also to be sort of careful on the sort of integrated more medical side, because that demands a lot more regulation. And we really need to start taking better care of our staff and design the back of house spaces within that process. Going back again to what I said earlier, reiterating their words of the spatial planning and the care and curation that needs to go into the property build. What I thought was a really interesting notion, and it's so simple, but we don't really maybe talk about it too much. We don't even sort of pause on the fact that relaxation room is not a non-revenue generating space, because it is part of the experience and guests come back for that. So I think that's quite an interesting notion coming out of that panel. And one of the myths was quite clear, both speakers, Lynn and Wilfred, that it is developers think that it's easy and a great revenue generator, while a spa staff is one of the most complex teams. And of course, if you get it right, you're bang on the money, and it's going to hit your top line and your bottom line. But it is a lot of work and complex issues that have to go into it, and that's why it's really important, as their sort of ending note in the discussion, that one needs to do their research and ask around recommendations for spa consultants, get a sense of what projects they worked on, how did those projects pan out, and really sort of get a very clear scope of work, which I think is again a reminder that it's really important to set those sort of expectations from the beginning. We then moved on to listen to the wonderful Maria from Mason Rose, someone who has really this sort of insider perspective on navigating trends, challenges, and PR within the hospitality industry. And some really interesting things on the booking process here, that on the trade side, that travel through trusted agents is incredibly high and growing. So people sort of moving back to using travel agents and their knowledge a lot more. And there's a lot more sort of consultants, independent travel consultants, setting up as travel agents in this space. And that's all driven by much more higher expectations from travelers. It's also a very late booking market, very last minute, and that the spend and the revenues are very high, which is very positive to hear. And then more villas and suites are being sought after that provide more privacy. Again, these are all the insights from guest needs. And it's also important to, what Maria was saying, to educate the travel community to learn more about the wellness and the retreats, because there's so much opportunity in the market. Moving on to the PR and communication side, one of the things Maria was quite clear about, that the changes are coming really, really fast. Digital is really a digital first world. Instagram and TikTok are the platforms that hotels need to work with and really understand. Maria was also saying that journalists are really stretched, and it's important, vital really, to have good relationships with them, because it's harder to get editorially published, because editorial and advertising are now merging in this new world. And she did agree that sort of boutique hotels have the flexibility to change more quicker and take more decisions, because they have smaller ownership. And the advantageous is that they can be really creative in their own space. It's a great place to be. And it's really important, what Maria was saying, to sort of find your own niche, and not just create a wellness program for the sake of it, but you really use expertise and be careful about the planning, and also understand that you cannot be everything to everybody. quite a simple thing, but we keep forgetting about it because we think we need to satisfy every need. We then moved on to James McLaughlin talking about sort of the talent war, because staff is something that keeps coming up all the time. So some of the great ideas from James, where great people introduce great people. So having a referral scheme within your company is incredibly valuable, and to use social media to get out stories from your own people, why they work for you, why they're really passionate about it. I think one of the companies James mentioned, issue very, very progressive, forward-looking sort of Indian, modern Indian concept in the UK, in their employee retention program. They want to contribute to everyone's career, even if they don't stay with them for the long term, which I think is pretty spectacular, because I don't see many companies think that way. And something that I see quite a lot of chefs trying to do in the restaurant space is to get in early and work with schools. There's a few brands out there that are really targeting that much younger audience to get them excited about hospitality and working within the sector, and also to look inward for talent and see and talk to people what other sort of skills they have, what are their aspirations, and on sort of more managerial side of things. James's views were that sort of management training is really lacking in so many respects, that people are being pushed to roles that they're not ready for, and it's being neglected as a way of cultivating your talent, and that mentoring programs are incredibly useful and beneficial to anyone's careers. And I think the last thing that I really took away from James's session was that communicate your success, show how fantastic this industry is, how fun it is to work in it, use your employees to get that engagement, and get everyone sort of huddled around that idea. And further on, Heather Davis spoke next on prioritizing employee well-being and why neglecting it is not an option, which was a very nice follow-on from James's session. Because, and the nice thing to hear is that we are making progress in this, and that major brands actually have sort of a responsibility here to start those mandatory standards so everyone else can follow them, and that's how the sort of movement really starts to take effect, and that they are really the ones who need to put wellness up to the forefront, because then it filters down. And I think Heather mentioned one really important thing, that there is a massive cost of not putting wellness at the forefront, and that's something that is gonna come and eat into your bottom line. And there's really sort of owners need to have an action plan for this, because they need to take care of the staff. Back to the earlier speakers who mentioned, back of house facilities. How are you designing the break room for team members? How can we make their life easier? Can we give them an hour off here and there because they don't need to come in as early or stay as late? So really good sort of management of also of time and skills. And Heather was quite adamant that we should have a wellness director position, and it should be a mandated position, as it has become in some other industries already. And that individual businesses are getting much better at this, but brands not so much. She did mention Disney, which is a company that is being brought up in a lot of conversations, kind of as a front runner and how to do things right and how to always take care of your employees. So something to keep in mind. And that we, like James said, of getting to the education early, go and work in schools. So Heather also echoed the same point, and we need to start at that sort of education level and to continue to talk about it and put it out there and communicate how we're doing and what we are doing. So that wrapped up beautifully the content from day one of Wellness and Hospitality Spotlight. And I hope you...
I know this is is quite a different live that I'm doing. But, I just wanted to share all the wisdom that was in last year's summit, and that was just day one. And if we look at all the subjects that were brought up, the fact that independent hotels really don't need that blueprint. They have that flexibility to really integrate with the destination. We talked about how Sean Murphy mentions that. I found that quite interesting that we don't have a talent problem per se, not more than we did a few years ago, pre pandemic. It's just that the industry is growing at such a rate and demand for our services are growing at such a rate that we as businesses can't keep up with that demand. It has nothing to do with the talent in the industry. It's us and our ability to hire people, train them, keep them happy, and keep them developing within our businesses. So I found that also incredibly interesting. And what Maria from Mason Rose mentioned that we are first time, this is the first time we are seeing independent wellness consultants like travel agents who specialize in wellness programs. These niche markets, these people are there. If people are setting up shop, it's because there is a demand. And consumers have a very intimate relationship. They trust their travel agents that they will find them the best wellness experiences. And also, there's a call for creating wellness programs and experiences that are relevant to your particular property and not creating them for the sake of creating them because our consumer is savvy. Our consumer is sophisticated. They know what they're looking for and they will call you out if they see a wellness program that doesn't quite make sense in that particular property. And it was also very interesting to see from the wellness consultant's perspective from Lynn and Wilfried that this is an age-old conversations we've had about how we're designing our spaces, what meaning we're giving to those spaces. And also very interesting is the revenue generation areas and the famous, relaxation area, which was traditionally known as a non-revenue generating area, when in fact it is a huge revenue generating area because without these spaces where people can unwind, relax, just spend that moment with connecting them with themselves, they wouldn't even come to the property in the first place. So I think it's rethinking how we've always done wellness, not necessarily per se creating something otherworldly, but instead really being mindful on how we're creating experiences, really looking at our talent problem from a realistic perspective, because the problem is not talent. The problem is our industry is growing at a rate that we simply do not have the capability to match that demand. It has nothing to do with our people. We've just not caught up. The market is way ahead of us, and we as a business have to catch up. So that was just a glimpse of one of the days of the summit that we did last year. And what we're doing this year with Hilary and I, we've handpicked another set of individuals who are doing fantastic work in the space of food and beverage, regenerative tourism, the whole gamut of where wellness actually gets involved as a transverse industry. And we're hearing what they are doing, what their playbook is, what challenges they're facing, and how they're navigating those challenges and still having success. So, at the end of the session, I will drop a link to last year's summit. So you can get an unlimited pass to watch those 19 speakers, because if you've just seen in the first day, the wealth of information that Hilary is brilliant at capturing all these moments, was fantastic. Day two is even more fantastic. I just didn't have more time to play it today. So I will be sharing the link to last year's summit, which I highly recommend that you watch before this year's summit goes live. And we'll be going live with our speakers on the 11th and 12th of July. So keep your eyes peeled to my LinkedIn feed, and I'll be sending you all the information to get registered for the event. And on that note, I wish you all a wonderful day ahead. Take care now.